Hello and welcome to the Kuriaknits podcast. My name is Erin and I'm so glad you've joined me here today. It is another dreary winter's day, but strangely positive degrees. It's been a very odd winter. I have yet again another filming setup that I'm trying out today. So I usually use like the front camera. Now I'm using the back camera. So we're gonna try it, but I can't see myself very well. I have it like mirrored to a second screen. The second screen is lagging, which is a very uncomfortable feeling to like see myself lagging. But hopefully I'll be able to still like show you all the things and it will be better quality for you all. It has been a very busy 2 weeks getting back into the swing of things. I was able to get back into the office and see everyone, and that was just lovely. And it seems to be knitting up a storm. I took stock of everything that I've been knitting and everything that I finished in the last 2 weeks. It is actually way more than I expected. So I think I'll have a lot to talk about today. I have some exciting thrift finds as well, so that's very exciting. So I guess we'll just get right into it. Let's start with what I'm wearing. So the exciting thing that I'm wearing two pieces of knitwear today actually, but let's start with the cardigan. This is a newly finished object. This is the Oversized Seasons cardigan by Ozetta, and it's done. Look, we have sleeves. This is still awaiting blocking. I knew I wouldn't have time for it to dry in time for the podcast, so I haven't blocked it yet. So right after I film this, it'll be going straight to the blocking mats. This along with my other finished object. Very exciting. I was worried that I wouldn't have enough yarn for this, but I actually have a little bit left over, which is very exciting. Not a lot. So this is the mohair, and this is the I always want to call it double merino, but that's not what they call it. Heavy? Is it heavy merino? I think it's the heavy merino. These are both knitting for Olive. And yeah, I just love the way that this cardigan is come together. It is so unbelievably warm. With the fisherman's rib, it is pretty thick. So it's just like wearing a hug, which is delightful. And yeah, I think the sleeves are a good length. I think they're going to grow a little bit. I did steam block it and it's already grown just a touch. But I just love the way that fisherman's rib knits up, and I really just love how it looks in a cardigan. I added these buttons, which I found, I think just at a local craft store, and I really like the way they look. I am still hoping, I had mentioned last time that I had to do some surgery on my button band, and I'm still hoping that I will be able to block that out, as there is a little bit of like separation in the button band. So hopefully I'll be able to block that out okay. I've still got a lot of ends on the inside, just because I like to leave them until I've blocked. But overall, I'm really in love with the way that this project turned out. I thought the sleeves start extremely slow just because there's a lot of stitches on the needles, and obviously doing fisherman's rib, every stitch that you see is actually 2 rows of knitting. But the rate at which you decrease is pretty rapid, and so by the time you hit maybe the elbow, this half of the sleeve just flies by, which is really amazing. Whereas in other sleeves, I don't find that like you reach the halfway point and it's flying by. Especially with a lot of the garments that have been coming out recently having a straight sleeve or balloon sleeve, you're kind of doing consistent things the whole way around, whereas this, like the rapid decrease, I find actually suits this cardigan quite a bit, and it just works. And I think that it's just such a smooth go into the cuff. So yeah, I'm really pleased with the way that this turns out. I really appreciate doing ribbed patterns for my cardigans, and I have a pattern in a Sandisgarn like pattern book that I hope to complete in the near-ish future. That is another broken rib cardigan, just because it diminishes the amount of purls that you're doing because of the nature of a cardigan, at least for the body. If you're doing it in stockinette, 1 row is knitting and 1 row is purling, and if you're not steeking it, you're doing that for the whole body of the cardigan, and that can just be a lot of purling. And I know that some people say if you don't like purling, you don't like knitting. I just like to minimize my purls. I find them more arduous on my wrists, so if I can choose projects that have more knits than purls, that is keeping myself in good hand health, knitting health, so I like to do that whenever possible. And if you're doing a broken rib, then you're doing knit one, purl one for the rows, and then you are knitting the back row, so you are cutting the amount of purling you're doing by a quite significant amount. And I also think that the cardigan looks pretty good. The only place that you're not cutting your purling is on the sleeves, whereas you could do those in stockinette if you were doing, obviously a stockinette cardigan would be all knits, but in this way you are adding some purls in there, and I've never found that's bothered me as much as doing the whole body with like the long rows of purls. I greatly prefer a knit purl pattern to a knit and then purl, if that makes sense. I just find that the flicking motion of my finger is easier for me than doing a row of purls. Does that make sense? You'd probably have to see how I knit for that to make a little bit more sense. But regardless, I am super pleased with the way that this cardigan came out. I will put some cutaways, or you might have already seen them, of me wearing this cardigan. And yeah, I think it'll be a firm favorite in my wardrobe. I would absolutely consider making another one. I might consider making one a little bit more of a spring, maybe like in a cotton merino sort of situation, just because this is incredibly warm and my house is very cold, and for it to be this warm in my house, it's just like a little furnace, which is sometimes ideal but not always ideal. Like, I'm feeling warm as I'm sitting here. So yeah, I mean, and the knitting for Olive as well has just softened up so beautifully, even with just with steam blocking it. Just the steaming blocking it is already softened up. Not that it was ever a rough yarn to work with. I think it's a beautiful yarn to work with, and I would absolutely love to try this combination again. Knitting for Olive in Canada is definitely more expensive than ordering it from Europe, and I think it's cheaper to order straight from the KFO store and get it shipped here than it is to buy it here. The only thing that you should be wary of is that this I bought in the Ukraine sale, charity sale that they had about a year ago now, this yarn, and I did get customs on it. I bought this yarn and it was about $20 in customs, I would say, which is annoying. So just keep that in mind. It is definitely cheaper on the surface if you're ordering from KFO itself, but it's not necessarily cheaper once you get customs. So when I'm back in Europe this summer, I'm hoping to pick up some more, probably one sweater's worth of KFO. I haven't decided whether I'm going to do their merino or their, what is it, heavy merino? I don't know which one I'm going to select yet. I have their merino that I'm hoping to make probably another cardigan out of. It's a cardigan that I'd started and I didn't finish. So yeah, I'm hoping to make another cardigan out of it. Sorry about that. We had a man at the door offering to remove our snow, but there was no snow outside, so I think the man is struggling for business a little bit this year because yeah, we haven't had a very snowy year. We had a huge snowstorm and then it all melted, and it's barely been below zero since, which is very odd. It feels like a very English winter. We've had a lot of rainy and foggy days and just no snow. I need to stop talking about the weather, but anyways, poor guy. I just think he needs some business. So I think I was talking about future KFO plans. When I say KFO, it's knitting for Olive in case you didn't connect those, which is okay. And now my dog's trying to get in the door. One moment. Okay, we're back. Hopefully I'm centered. My dog likes to sit in the beanbag chair, which is right there, and just stare at me as I film, which is just delightful because now I have an audience. Yeah, so I'll be in the UK for about a month this year, and so I won't actually be in London. I'll likely be in Kent, traveling around to various archives, but hopefully I can nip into London for a day or two and visit some of the lovely yarn stores in London like I did last year. I had such a lovely time just kind of perusing around the London stores. I will also be up in the north of England, and hopefully be extending my trip a little bit to go up to Scotland, which is my favorite place in the whole world, and then I can visit some of the Scottish wool stores as well, which I'm very excited about. But I don't quite know if that's happening yet, so we shall see. We will see how much my research takes out of me, and if I am have the stamina to keep going, or if I want to run home to my house and my family, which both are equally likely. We're just kind of playing it by ear. So anyway, I don't know if I have much else to say about this cardigan other than I love it, and I'm very excited to see how it blocks out. I have one other finished object, and it is one that I've been wearing for a long time. So this is the Moby Sweater by PetiteKnit, and it is just beautiful. So you guys will have seen that I have been wearing this as a slipover while I was waiting to put the sleeves on it. And the sleeves actually flew by just because of how oversized this thing is. This part, like where the body ends, is like kind of here on me. So I actually didn't have as much sleeve to go by. The one thing that I will say about this sweater, and you'll be able to see it in the cutoff, is that the decreases on the arms aren't very dramatic, and it creates more of a straight sleeve look, even though there are some subtle decreasing, which I think you can see on the sleeve. Despite the subtle increasing that is here, it's still really thick sleeve. There's a lot of stitches on the needles at the end, and I do like the way that it looks while it's on. It just gives a very oversized sweater, but it means that the sleeves, sorry, my dog decided to groom himself. It means that the sleeves are a little bit difficult to get into jackets, which is really annoying because I wear jackets about half the year, and I wear jackets around the same time that I'd be wearing a sweater like this. So I was wearing it yesterday, and it was around 2 degrees yesterday, and I actually found that this was warm enough. But any colder, and I think it would be a little bit of a struggle to get this into a jacket. I basically had to like fold up the sleeve in on itself to be able to even get it in. And so if you are knitting this sweater, I would just say, although I think that the straight sleeves really suit this sweater, if you are wanting to wear this in a colder winter environment where you'd want to wear a jacket over top or even a raincoat over top, I would consider making the sleeves more of a dramatic decrease, because yeah, they're very difficult to get into jackets, at least for me, and my jackets are usually quite a bit oversized. So that's just something to note. But overall, I mean, like I said before, I found the sleeves so enjoyable to knit. I did end up going with the patterning on the sleeves, even though it does bother me that they come out as if from nowhere. It's kind of like you've got your moss stitch and then it's the cables just coming out of it, and that does bother me a little bit. But I think it was worth it to me because I found these sleeves, again, just so enjoyable to knit, same as the sweater, and I would absolutely recommend this pattern, and I think I will be making another one. If not the full sweater, then I think I'm just going to make the body and use it as a slipover. That said, I have seen that PetiteKnit is making a slipover version of this. I just don't know that I'd buy the slipover pattern. Excuse me. A lot of her slipovers, what she does is kind of make like more of an indent, more of a tank top type shape to make it more of a proper vest. Whereas I actually really liked the boxiness of just using the body of this as a slipover. So I think I would just end up making the body of this. I might even go one size down because this is very oversized. It comes with a lot of positive ease. And yeah, just wear that as a slipover because I actually wore this a lot. I would say at least once a week during the time that I had it as a slipover, I would wear it as a slipover. And I actually found that that was perhaps a little bit more work appropriate than a big oversized sweater. I did wear this to work yesterday and it was fine. I don't work, I mean, there's nothing that says I have to be super formal except for some specific events, but being a grad student and being seen kind of as like faculty, even though I'm not really, it's kind of a fuzzy line. There is an expectation, especially when you're in the classroom, to put off kind of a professional air about you. And so I don't want to, I think the biggest thing is I don't want to be mistaken for one of the students. And so there is a certain expectation there, I guess, of dressing a little bit more professionally. And I think that this sweater is probably like just on the line, which is fine. I mean, I definitely have a gap in my wardrobe of really oversized sweaters. When I want that look, I really only grab from my Lume. Is that true? Yeah, I would say my Lume is my number one, and I would say that this will be kind of comparable to that. The times that I'd reach for my loom, I will be reaching for this. The yarn for this is Harrisville Designs Daylight. Harrisville Designs is if I'm not mistaken, I don't have the wraps, but it's I think an American Cormo, and that was my first time knitting with that specific yarn, and I will say I absolutely love it. I would love to get my hands on more of it. So their philosophy behind their yarn is it's undyed. This is what I have left from the sweater. It is an undyed yarn, and they add in some speckling of a color on top, and so this is in the caffeine colorway, and so there's kind of browny black speckles. I don't know that you'll be able to really see any of it, but it does come through a little bit in the sweater. There's some fun speckling. You can see some on the back here. There's some fun speckling through the body. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. Unfortunately, my light isn't amazing right now. Story of my life. But I really love the interest that it gives to an undyed yarn. They also have their nightshades, which I think is perhaps their more popular version of their yarn, which is the darker version, and so they have a black yarn with speckles of colors again, and I would be perfectly willing to try that. I had picked this up when I was in Yale at is it New Haven Yarns? It's the one in like downtown New Haven when I was there for a conference. Really cute shop. But I'm so glad that I picked this up. It's definitely more of like a bougie sweater. This sweater cost me, I think the yarn was about 100 American dollars, so about 120-ish Canadian dollars, so definitely not cheap. But I will say that you can definitely feel the quality on this. Just from wearing the body, I already noticed a significant difference between the way that the body feels and the way that the arms feel. And so I think that they'll match up eventually, but the body is so soft. I love it so much that I'm excited for the sleeves to get that same softness. This, along with this cardigan, is going to be going into a bath after this podcast because this has again been steam blocked but hasn't been properly blocked. And I'm interested to see if it fixes some of the inconsistencies in the cross pattern here. You may be able to see that these rows are much better than these rows, and so I'm hoping a good block will be able to take a lot of that out. But for only 5 skeins of yarn, to even have some left and have a sweater that huge, I think that the value for this yarn is pretty good, especially when knitting at a similar gauge as the Moby sweater. And I would absolutely consider, if I'm willing to invest in a sweater quantities of this yarn again, I would absolutely consider the Harrisville Design yarns because I am just in love. I will say the one thing is that a lot of them have more bright color speckles in them and they're not necessarily to my taste. So they'll have this same like beigey base. Oh my gosh, I need to rewind these. They'll have this same beigey base, but they'll put like green and blue and red and purple speckles on it, and I really liked how natural that the caffeine color looked, and I wasn't as drawn to the ones that had like purple speckles on it. So I think for me personally that really limits how much use I can get out of this kind of yarn or this collection of yarns. Whereas if you want some pops of color, I think that this is a really good direction to go in if you want a really good quality sweater. And this already feels like it's gonna last a lifetime, and something about that is just so amazing, especially when I'm used to, or at least to this point I've been used to knitting with mostly more budget yarns just because that's what fit in. But now that I have too much yarn, some would argue, although I will say almost everything in my stash I have a project in mind for it, and the ones that I don't, I'm trying to sell. So I feel a real responsibility that although I have a lot of yarn now, a lot of it, one, is thrifted, but two, I feel a real responsibility to make sure that either I am knitting it or it's going into a good home within about a 1 to 2 year time frame. And that's important for me to have responsibility for my stash, but I also feel that now that I do have a stash, it gives me a little bit more freedom to invest in some project yarns, because if something comes up and I want to knit it, I always feel like I have something in my stash that I'll be able to knit it with, and that's actually provided me with more freedom in my knitting. especially now that a lot of it is thrifted yarns or secondhand yarns that everything I buy new, I buy with purpose. Everything I buy secondhand, I don't necessarily have a purpose for because it comes up unexpectedly, in that those yarns are the ones that have given me the freedom to be able to pick projects that perhaps are a little bit pricier and better quality when buying new. And that's one of my favorite things about thrifting yarn and getting yarn secondhand. I'll be speaking a little bit more about that. I think in my next video I will be going into how I find so many yarns secondhand and what my strategy and ethos is behind that. So hopefully a lot of you have been asking for that, so hopefully that is what you're looking for. So that is it, I think, for finished objects, which I mean that is no small feat. I finished four arms in 2 weeks, so that's not bad. Let's get into our works in progress. So I will say with most of my works in progress, I have done small bits on them, and so I will be trying not to spend as much time on each of these, because I don't think, other than one, I put a huge dent in any of them, just because I wanted to get these two FOs kind of off the needles. I'm really hoping to clear out a lot that is on my needles at the moment to give myself like a fresh start for, I guess, February. I will actually be traveling in February. My husband and I booked in a trip to Cuba, which is very exciting. And so I want kind of the latter half of the winter to be a lot of new cast-ons, and then I can finish those up in time for summer and then have some summer cast-ons. I've got ideas. Oh, and a lot of you guys have been asking about the cardigan that I'm knitting for my husband that I have not shown for a few weeks. I also have nothing to show. That is one thing that I want to focus on more in the future, but I was, as many of you had said I would be, was very burnt out from all of the gift knitting that I was doing, and so I've just taken this month to focus a little bit on my own, and my husband's not concerned, so he is fine. He knows he's getting it, and he is excited for when he does get it, but he's not like in need of a cardigan. He's very welcome to receive the cardigan, but he's not like desperate for it. And neither of us have like gift giving as our love language, so it's not a slight. Like neither of us see it as a slight. So I think we're fine. We've communicated. It's good. Thank you for your concern. It's ongoing. I haven't forgotten about it. So let's talk about this guy. Now I'm forgetting everything about this pattern. This is the Heartland. Is that right? Heartwood pattern by Tania something. I'll put it, it's down below. It's linked down below. It is a beautiful color work pattern. And I am knitting this in Newtoden. So since I last spoke to you guys, I think what I've done is split the sleeves and then done a little bit on the body. So it's starting to look a little bit more like a sweater. I will say that this sweater is coming out a little bit less oversized than I thought it would, and I'm not mad at it, but just when I was knitting and I was like, oh my gosh, this thing's gonna be huge, and then I split off the sleeves and I'm like, you know what, it's not as huge as I think it's going to be. You may realize that this is on stoppers, so my Chiaogu 4mm needles have been in high demand. I had at one point 4 sweaters on my needles that were all using 4mm, and I have my knit pick set and my Chiaogu set, which means I have 2 4mm, and then I have my what are they called? My ergonomic needles. They're plastic. I'll put them on the screen if I can remember them. But I've got a pair of those too, but they're fixed, so I can't do all circumferences. So actually, when I was at a yarn store yesterday to pick up something, which I'll show later, I picked up another pair of 4mm needles so that I don't have to keep on switching them around, which means I can spend a little bit more time on this baby. So yeah, I'm hoping to have the body done within the next few weeks at the very least. I am just knitting in the main color for now. And then I will be adding some more of this color bark into the bottom. That's not in the original pattern, but I'll make sure that I specify on my Ravelry page what changes I've made. I've seen a lot of other people make similar changes and adding pieces of this beautiful colorwork design into other places in the sweater, and I plan on doing the same just because I have equal amounts of each of these 2 colors in Newtoden, and I want to make sure that I'm getting as much use of them as possible. So this is what I have left of the first 2 plates of this lighter color, and I do not remember the colors. They are all in Swedish. I, one, do not trust myself to speak Swedish, but two, don't remember the colors. So I will put them down below on my Ravelry page again if you are interested in looking at the colors. That said, Nutiden usually does not re-release their colors, so if you do like the colors, I'm so sorry, I don't think you can get them. But I got this in their last sale of 2022. And I am loving using this yarn. If you want to hear me gush about Nutiden, you can listen in the last podcast, but I'll perhaps wait until I have a little bit more of this done to give my full thoughts on Nutiden yarn. And of course I won't have my full thoughts until I've kind of finished and have been wearing the sweater for a little bit. But I will say that doing the color work in Nutiden was a bit of a challenge, and doing one color in Nutiden is 10 times easier. It is going so much faster. So I'm very happy to be doing Nutiden in one color, and I think in the future, I don't know how eager I would be to have another Nutiden colorwork project, if you follow. I've heard a lot of people say that it gets easier after doing that whole yoke, which is a lot of knitting. I did not find that it got particularly easier. The yarn was breaking a lot. Thankfully, with unspun yarn, it's easy to smush back together, but it's breaking all the time and it just slows me down, and it's just annoying. And I was hearing, I don't remember who, another podcaster saying that Nutiden allows you to like get back to the roots of knitting and like really slow down and enjoy the process. And I love that. I love the idea of that. I am not a big enough person to enjoy that. I just like, I like the routine of just knitting my stitches, and when the yarn is breaking, I'm just like, why are you breaking? And I think it's worth it for such a beautiful fabric, but would I opt for colorwork again? At this point, probably not. Would I buy Nutiden again? Yes. But I think I would buy one color and do a one color sweater. And that's where I'm at on that. Let's move to the next one. So my next work in progress is the Semper sweater V-neck by Sophie Hemmings, a Purl girl, and I have finished the body. So this is a test knit that I'm doing for her that is due next week, so I think the pattern will be out soon, and my obligation to this test knit was just to knit the body. And so I am not doing any test knits right now, which is kind of an interesting feeling. But yes, the body is complete. She is looking beautiful. It is a cropped length and is intended to be a cropped length. This is a cropped sweater. I think that the V-neck on this is absolutely beautiful. This is blocked out so that I could give her accurate measurements on the body, and it is bang on to what the pattern had said, so that is amazing to see, and I just have the arms to go. The reason that I haven't forged ahead on the arms is because this yarn is hurting my fingers so much, and a lot of you guys gave me amazing suggestions on how to mitigate that, and I just haven't done any of them yet. I should. I think the easiest one is just stick a band-aid on my finger and call it a day, but a lot of you had amazing suggestions, so if you have the same problem where a mohair or like a thinner yarn is digging into your finger, I would highly recommend looking at the comments of my previous podcast, because a lot of people had amazing solutions for how to make that not happen, which is great. I just haven't followed any of them, so I'm sure they all work. They all sound amazing. So this is knit in drops Flora and drops Kid Silk Mohair, and it's the Kid Silk Mohair that is destroying my finger. And so I've just given myself a little bit of a break after finishing the body. I think the sleeves will be really easy. It's just miles of stockinette, but I am so excited to have this. I have been loving being in this test group and seeing everyone else's finished objects. I think this pattern is just so absolutely beautiful, and I think I would get a lot of wear out of it. I think I'd be able to wear it to the office. And yeah, I'm really excited for it. If you like the idea of this sweater, she also has a crew neck version that is already out, so I would definitely recommend checking that out if you like this but aren't a big v-neck person. I really love the way that she did the v-neck double knit. Or it's not double knit, it's just folded over, but I really like the effect that made, and I really love the way that it just is a little bit thicker around the neckband, and it is a little bit more finished, professional looking. I don't know, I just think it looks really good. I am excited to finish it. I love the color. I love everything about it except for the process, And unfortunately, I most reach for projects that are just the perfect combination of a process and a finished object knit, and this is only fulfilling one of those purposes. So it hasn't been my most reach for project for that reason, but I think the pattern is fantastic. And follow me on Instagram because I will definitely be shouting out when that releases next week, because I think it is amazing and I think that everyone should be knitting it basically. I love it. I loved her original in the crew neck as well. I had it on my list to knit, and I'm so glad I got accepted to this test. I had released a video last week about everything that you'd want to know about test knitting and kind of my thoughts on test knitting. One of the funny things is one of the main questions that I get quite a bit is people asking me like, how do you get selected for these test knits? I keep on applying and I don't get them. This past week I applied for 3 test knits and I didn't get any of them, so you are not alone. Sometimes you apply and you don't get in, and that is just fine. Yeah. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, and the thing about test knits is that no one ever tells you why you didn't get selected. You just didn't get selected. And so especially for the patterns that you're like, oh my gosh, that'd be amazing, that you don't get selected for, you're like, darn, I have to wait a couple months to even have access to this pattern. And especially at this time of year, I'm like, oh, I'm probably not even gonna knit it this year then, because I'm casting on for like my last winter projects soonish and it's not gonna be there. So oh well. I'm definitely open to doing 1 or 2 test knits this winter, but I really would have to look at the deadline, because I will have at least a week where I won't be knitting anything wintry at all. I'm planning to take a project with me to Cuba, but it will be like a summer top because it's gonna be hot, and I'm not taking any wool. And I also need to be careful about the needles that I bring, just because I don't know what the security is going to be like upon arrival, and I really don't want my needles taken away. So I will only be bringing my needles with a rounded tip, but I'll talk about that a little bit more in the project in the podcast right before I leave. So this is a sweater that I don't think I've worked on since before Christmas, and to be honest, I think may be a languishing WIP for a little bit longer. And this is sweater number 23 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. It is one of her newest patterns, and it is size inclusive, which is really great. It goes up to a 5XL, which is the reason that I decided to knit it. It has an amazing back shoulder detail here, which I really, really love the way it looks. And it also has basically the same neckline as the Moby Sweater, and it is a technique that I really, really love. So if you have either of these patterns and you haven't done the neckline yet, I would highly recommend it. It was a new technique and way to double over a collar for me, and I think it creates just the smoothest, beautiful double over collars, and I will be using it on all of my patterns going forward. I think I don't know who discovered it first, or if like they were both at the same workshop, but these patterns came out around the same time and they both had this new technique of doing a doubled over collar, and I love it. So I would highly recommend it. I don't want to spoil it, which is why I'm not saying how it's done. And these are the needles that I was talking about, the rounded ones. I really love these needles. They are the Prim. They're the Prim ergonomic needles. These are the size 8 US 5mm, and these are the first needles that I basically started on, and I still love them to this day. I knit the fastest on these needles. So this sweater is in Drops Air and Drops Kid Slip Mohair, and the reason that I think this is going to sit for a little bit, even though I love the color and I love the way it's looking, is that it has the same mohair problem as the other one, where it's sticking into my finger, and I kind of developed a technique where I will take the air and put the mohair on top of it and kind of sit it on my finger, but it's not perfect and it will slide, and obviously you can't do that forever. So yeah, I'm just not... Now that I'm in the round, I'm just not enjoying it as much, to be honest. And I am just more excited by other things at the moment, and I know I will finish this, but I don't have any immediacy in finishing this. So I think that I did a couple hours on the body. It's going, but I think I'm gonna have it sit for a little bit until I'm excited to come back to it. And to be honest, that might be next fall. So although I think that this color is very in right now, it's in season, I don't know, I'm just not drawn to it. And to be honest, I really want to be enjoying when I'm knitting and not see it as a slog. And I'm not particularly excited, or like, I'm excited, but I'm not like thrilled by the final object. I think it's more of a practical knit, and I'm not excited by the process right now. Everything else is stocking out the round, which usually would be great if it's not digging into my finger. So I think that although I've done a couple rounds, I'm gonna let that sit for a little bit. and how I'm excited to come back to it. And I know that I will be excited to come back to it. I did this with my sweater number 15 as well. I don't know why it's always my favorite things knitwear. I can't think of any reason that those are the patterns specifically. But I did come back to it, and that gives me faith that I will come back to this one as well. I think I just need a break from Drops Kid Silk, and I can really only take one pattern at a time right now. It is just not my favorite mohair, and I think I talked about in the last one. I think this will be my last time purchasing it because it's just not worth it for me. It's the most affordable. I think it gives a decent effect. Some of the colors definitely shed though, and it hurts my finger, and I'm done. I'm not gonna do it anymore. So that's me. That's me in my relationship with Drops Kid Silk mohair. If you have some other affordable alternatives that are like of the same price range that I can get in Canada, please recommend them. But yeah, I think I will just be investing a little bit more if I choose to add mohair to my projects. After wearing my Moby Slipover so much, I realized that if I was going to be putting arms on my Moby to make it a sweater, I was going to need a slipover. And so I decided on the Terrazzo Slipover by PetiteKnit. Very much in progress. That's what it's looking like. I've actually done quite a bit on it. I am right now on the neckline. It has a twisted rib double folded neckline, and it is taking a little while just because you have to twist both your knits and your purls because it's folded over. So it's like a proper turtleneck, which I'm very excited for, but it's just taking a little bit. But I am always one that once I finish the splitting the sleeves and onto the body, I want to do the neckline and the armholes first, just because it makes it easier to see how it's fitting, and then I can figure out the length. Because the Terrazzo, is it Terrazzo or Terrazzo? This slipover in particular is super long and has a split hem, and I don't think I want it as long as the pattern intends. But I don't know how long I want it yet, so I want to be able to try it on, which is why I am finishing the neck to be able to give me a good idea of how long I actually want this thing. I decided to go for a black because I thought it would be a really amazing neutral to have in my wardrobe, and then I'd be able to wear it a lot. That said, I also want one in like a creamy color closer to this because I did find a lot of use out of that as well. I just didn't really have what I was imagining in my stash, so I went with what I did have in my stash, and this is Drops Nepal. If you'll remember, when I bought this yarn, I actually had bought it for a zipper sweater, and I was going to add stripes to it with white yarn, and I would love to do that, but I knew that I would not have time based on the other things that I'm picturing making in this year. It's just not high on my priority list to make a zipper sweater. So I think that will be a fall 2023 knit for me, to do some kind of, I don't know if it will be the zipper sweater by PetiteKnit or a zipper sweater, but that is definitely a priority for me. I think next year, but of course that is subject to change. So I decided to repurpose this yarn into this pullover, and I'm glad that I did because I don't actually think I'd have enough of this yarn for the zipper sweater that I'd imagined, as this is already ball 5. And we've only done this. So this yarn, to be fair, I am knitting this on 4mm needles, so I'm holding this at a tighter gauge than this yarn I think recommends. Yeah, they recommend a 5, so I would definitely be able to get more out of this yarn on a 5mm needle. But although it's quite a dense fabric, I do really love the way that it's knitting up and how solid this fabric is, but it's eating yarn like no other. To be fair, these don't have a whole lot of yarn in them. They're only, I think, 90 meters, 75 meters. So like there's not a lot in these little things. There's a reason they're so affordable. I think one of these balls I got for like $3. So it is definitely a budget-friendly project, and I think that the yarn also feels a little bit more budget friendly. My skin is very dry in the winter, but it was actually giving me a bit of like rug burn, carpet burn as I was rubbing it along my finger when I was knitting, which I've never experienced before. I'm assuming it's just because my skin is super dry, because I don't feel like this is actual carpet yarn. And I have used yarns of this thickness or of this roughness, and I have never had that. And I did have it with this, so I don't know what is going on, especially for the alpaca in it. Like I don't know why I was experiencing that. Just want to throw that out there in case any of you have also experienced that. I would love to hear about it. Not as bad though as not digging into my finger. It's just kind of rubbing my finger in a weird way. I don't know. I just want to disclose that. Me and Drops, we're having some adventures lately. But yeah, I think this will be an intensely wearable object, but I think for it to be that, I will have to amend this pattern a little bit. And I'm really annoyed because the pattern that I actually wanted to knit and had in mind is one in a book that I finally got my hands on, but when I cast this on, I did not think I would get my hands on it. And so I made this, and now that I have the pattern book, I'm like, do I just rip it out? And I'm not going to do that because I've already done quite a bit of knitting on this. But it's just annoying that I bought this pattern and then I bought this book and it has the other pattern and whatever. Yeah, I mean, I am glad that I bought this pattern though, because I actually think that if you were making this in a cotton, and I think it's a good gauge for a cotton, that this is actually, if you can amend it a little bit, it's a really good tank top pattern. Look at this on its own. That's just a standard tank top. If you don't make a turtleneck and instead just make a rounded neck, I think that this would make a really nice tank top, and I think I will make a tank top using this pattern. So pattern hack, I guess, for you, you get a vest and a tank top all in one. I mean, I'm sure most tanks, I'm sure most vests would also make decent tank patterns if you amend the yarn, but I think this one in particular has a really good shape that I've been looking for in some patterns. So I'm definitely considering making a tank top with this pattern as well, which will at least fill in my guilt, make my guilt feel better. They say I'm trying to get a PhD, and then I speak and people don't believe me. I'm at a loss for words. But yeah, I will hopefully be able to use this pattern in another way, which will make the cost that I spent on this feel a little bit better, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I am pleased with the way that this is turning out. I think that Drops Nepal and I'm assuming it's just my skin. I have another sweater's quantity of it behind me that I'm going to make a colorwork sweater out of. And I think that this yarn will actually be really well suited to colorwork just because of how rounded it is. I don't know if you can see that. And I think that it will make the stitches in the colorwork project really pop. So I'm excited to eventually cast that on. But for now, my dog is digging. I don't know if you can hear that. He likes to jump into our bathtub and like dig in the tub, which is super weird. Like he's not doing anything. And it's not wet right now. Like no one's showered this morning. I'm a night shower. And my husband likes to shower after lunch for some reason. Working at home has changed all of our schedules dramatically. But if you can hear that, I'm so sorry. My dog's just digging away. He's been a little bit of a menace this morning. But yeah, that's probably enough about me and Drops and Paul. I'm so sorry. I feel like this episode has been all over the place. It's throwing me off that I can't see myself, but I've also been working a lot this week, and I feel like my brain's a little bit fried, and it's making it so that my articulation of words is not as strong as it could otherwise be. And maybe you're watching this and you're like, Erin, you've never been great with your words. And I would say, yeah. So sorry. I don't know what to tell you. Okay, let's get into acquisitions. We don't have a ton, but I think that they are very exciting. So I'm actually going to go with the one that I got yesterday first, because it has the pullover pattern that I was talking about in it. And it is this book. I am so excited I got my hands on it. You may have heard me talk about the fact that I could not find this book anywhere. This is the Sandnesgarn Soft Knits for Women pattern book, and there are at least 3 patterns in here that I'm very eager to make, if not more. And specifically, I wanted this book because it has the Guernsey Genser in it, which is my preferred 80s ski inspired pattern. Let me pull it up so you guys, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, but just as this guy, this one. So I have been wanting to make a sweater like this, and I will be casting it on soon. But I liked the PetiteKnit version. I liked the My Favorite Things Knitwear. I like the Taya Coleman version. All of the versions have been fine. This is my favorite one, and this is the one that I wanted to knit, and I could not find this pattern book. The store closest to me that sells Sandnesgarn yarn had it out of stock for months, like almost a year. It's sold out so fast. I think it's because Inga of the Knitting Traditions podcast bought it and was talking about it so much, and she is just so popular and lovely that I think everyone ran out to their store and got it. I had wanted to get, I remember watching her make other things, and she has definitely inspired to make me to make other things out of this book. But the Guernsey Genser, I'd already wanted to get my hands on this book. And I remember watching her podcast. I don't remember when she started her first knit from this book, but I remember watching it and be like, oh, if I couldn't find it now, I definitely won't be able to find it in the future. It's going to be a long time. And I had kind of resolved myself that I'm not going to be able to find this book. And my local yarn store got it back in stock. They announced that they had a Santa's Garden shipment, and I ran to their website. It's Galt House of Yarn in Cambridge, Ontario, by the way. And they had more of the book. They had more of the book. The last time I'd actually ordered it through them, and they had ordered it through Santa's Garden, and Santa's Garden never sent it. So I'm curious. I don't know if I can find on the thing if they had to print more of them because of how popular it is. Yeah, they don't have like a front publishing page, so I can't tell if this is like a second edition sort of situation, but yeah, so they had ordered it back in, I feel like the summer, and it didn't come in. And so I guess it finally came in, and I'm very excited to have this book because there are quite a few patterns that I want to make from it. The pullover pattern that Inge from Knitting Traditions has also made is this one, and I think it's just beautiful. It is very similar to what I'm making, but it has these ties here, but it is a completely different gauge to what I'm making now, so I don't think the yarns would have matched regardless. I am actually surprised. I think that this is with a fingering and a mohair, and I did not, it doesn't look like a fingering and a mohair kind of weight, but I guess it is. So I'm excited to make that. The Guernsey Genser is my #1 priority from this book. I initially planned to make it in this vintage yarn that I got from thrifting, and this is from, there's an old department store in Canada that went out of business in like the late 80s called Eaton's, and this is a yarn from Eaton's that I had thrifted. I gotten 10 balls of this for $20, which was really amazing. So this is their superwash full wool knitting worsted in their coordinates. And I think that this would be a good yarn for it, but I don't know if I want a color this warm. And the mohair that I was going to pair with it has some like sparkles in it. And although I think that they suit each other well, and I've actually done a swatch in it, I just don't know that I want something sparkly right now. So I'm kind of assessing my stash to see if there's something else that would fit well with the Guernsey Genser. So I'm not convinced that I actually want this combination for that sweater anymore. Which is kind of annoying because I thought I had it all planned out, and then I'm like, you know what, no. And then I want to make it, I think I need to make it in a lighter color, but at the same time I really want to start knitting with this yarn. I had even caked it up because I'm ready to start knitting with it. This is the yarn that I'd gotten for Christmas. This is the Woolstock worsted in a beautiful, I think it's thyme green color. It is stunning. It has like just beautiful greens and teal variations in it, and I'm so excited to knit with it. And it's the right kind of yarn for the Guernsey Genser, but I think it might be too dark. And I, excuse me, looked at what other people have like at other people's Guernsey Gensers, and most people have actually made them white. But those who have done them in a darker color, I'm kind of so-so on how they worked. Some of them I love, and some of them I'm like, it really detracts from the pattern. So let me know what you think. Do you think that this would be a good fit for the Guernsey Genser? I might just swatch and see, or else I might hold off until I have a yarn that's appropriate for what I'm envisioning for the sweater. And I mean, I could always make two. I own the pattern, so I can make a darker one and then do a lighter one in the future. The other pattern that I really love from this book is this one. This is the Frankie Genser Close Edition, which I think is a really nice basic pattern here. And then they have it in like a fluffier version. This is like the title pattern. I think that that's really beautiful, and I would definitely consider making. I love that it's just a basic in here. And then also they have a version of a zipper sweater, which I think is really beautiful. I love the detailing around here. And so I think I would opt for this one instead of the PetiteKnit one, just because I own this one now. So I would love to make that one. I think this is double Sunday and can soak mohair. Yeah. So just a DK and a mohair is what they're recommending. I would probably just do it in a worsted weight. I don't see the need for a mohair being in a sweater like this. I don't know, that's just me. But I am so excited to have my hands on this book. And I hopefully, I think it's worth the price if I at least make 2 patterns from it, because most patterns online are like $8 and this was 16. And so if I'm able to make 2 patterns from it, it's worth it. But hopefully I make more. I'm just excited. I was like thrilled to be able to finally get my hands on it. I practically ran to Cambridge. I actually ordered it online, so I was worried it would sell out again. And then went to go pick it up in store. And while I was there, they had a little thing. I was just perusing the yarns. I didn't buy any yarn, which is applause for me. But I was perusing and they said, coming soon, Figolana. To my knowledge, this is the first store in Canada to have Figolana, and it is close-ish to me. I can drive there within a half hour, so that is a huge win. I'm very interested to see the prices as it is a very affordable yarn in Europe, and I did pick some up while I was in Copenhagen, and I quite like it. It's by no means my favorite yarn in the world, but I think it's a good affordable basic yarn that you can kind of reach for. To my knowledge, they're only getting Ozetta and Tania, which is fine. I would love to see them get their worsted or like their DK weight, but I will take anything. But I'm very interested to see what the pricing is going to be like, because when you get European yarns in Canada, they are always more expensive, and it may be worth it with the amount that I'll be going to Europe in the future, at least once a year for research. It may be much more economical for me to just stock up while I'm in Europe. So that's a privilege, obviously. Not everyone is hopping off to Europe every year, but I am doing so for my work. And so while I'm there, I might as well stock up on the yarns that I want to get. I mean, on the flip side of that, do I want to be going over to Europe and stocking up on budget yarns? I don't know. So not only is Figolana cheaper over there, Drops is way cheaper over there. Knitting for Olives obviously cheaper over there. Most of the yarns that are Sandisgard, way cheaper over there. Most of the yarns that are European are just much cheaper, even with the conversion rate when you're buying them in Europe. And so it's very difficult not to just stock up on everything like over there, because it's like almost like a scarcity mentality of like, if I don't get it now and I want it, I will end up paying way more for it. So yeah, I'm very excited. I'm also very intrigued. So I was able to get a thrift find. It's not a thrift find, it's a secondhand find. Oh my gosh, I'm breaking my Jute. If I felt like there was some wool caught up in my hand, and then I went to pull it and it was new to den. I just ripped my yarn. See, it's so fragile. Oh, that's so annoying. Okay, anyway, I found this on Facebook Marketplace. This is actually the same woman that I got this from, my wool matchalope from Wool Dreamers from, which is funny. I've also seen her post other Wool Dreamers wool that I wasn't able to grab. I saw her post Noro yarn one time, and I'm like, what are you doing over there? she's always selling these very expensive yarns for like half off, and I'm like, what is your life that you're just consistently buying these yarns and then selling them on Marketplace? I mean, thank you. I will gladly benefit from your decision making in this regard, but I'm just like, I just have so many questions, and it's always like a like leave on the porch, leave the money in the mailbox kind of situation, and so I never get to speak to her. And I don't know if I'd be bold enough to be like, I have questions for you. Why are you doing this? So, I mean, it's great. I can watch out for her stuff, and I know it's going to be quality, and I know she gives, like, I know it's bug-free, I know it's decent stuff, but it's just kind of, it's funny. I'm like, where is this coming from? What do you know that I don't know? Where are you getting these discount yarns? And if you're not getting discount yarns, how do you have the money to buy yarns and then sell them at half off? Like, it's weird to me. And they're always new yarns too. It's not like they're yarns that have been sitting in her closet forever. She's posting them consistently. I don't know. I'm very intrigued. But anyways, I'm the beneficiary of at least some of her yarns that she has sold. And you may have heard me a couple months ago talk about the fact that this this yarn from Harrisville Design. Someone had mentioned that Brooklyn Tweed is actually down at the same mill and that they're extremely similar yarns. And so I'm like, I've never really had a huge interest in Brooklyn Tweed, but if that's the case, then I should get my hands on some. And she was destashing some Brooklyn Tweed. So this is Brooklyn Tweed Shelter, American Targhee Columbia wool. And it is, yeah, spun in Harrisville, New Hampshire. So I guess it is a very similar yarn. And their wool, it's cool. The wool was sourced in Johnson County, Wyoming. Very cool. So this is the color Blanket Fort, which I'm listening to you guys. Don't say I don't listen to you guys. On my everything I did in 2022, I had made one purple sweater. And I said purple is not really my color. I don't reach for it a lot. And I promise, I had like 20 comments being like, what are you talking about? Purple is the best color and it looks amazing on you and you should not disparage the color purple. Which, of all the things I said in that video, I did not expect the color purple to be the most controversial of them, which is so funny. So thank you for upping my confidence in the color purple, I guess. So I got this. This is not the color I would have chosen to get in Brooklyn Tweed Shelter, but I got it for about half off and I'm not going to say no to that. And I think my plan, I got 5 skeins of this, and I think my plan is to make a pullover. I think the skeins are about half the size as the Harrisville Designs skeins are, or at least they definitely feel about half the size. I need to check, because if they are the same size, then I can get a sweater out of it. If they're not the same size, then I'm looking at probably a pullover, and I'm thinking of making something in the family of my what's the name of it? I just said it, Moby Sweater, but as a slip over. And I think that that will let this purple color shine, and then I can wear something a little bit more neutral underneath. This is in the color Blanket Fort, and I think that it does have some really amazing variation. There's some reds and purples and kind of blues in there as well. It's a really interesting color, but it's not by far, I think, the color that I would have chosen, but I've seen some people online and I think it looks better knit up, which is not true of all skeins. So I'm very interested to see how this knits up, but yeah, cool to get my hands on this. And then she also threw in there 2 other colors of Shelter in one-off skeins. So I don't know if I'm going to use them. I think they actually look quite good together. I can also combine them because of the same weight with my Harrisville, and they look very similar. So maybe I'll do some kind of I might even have enough for a slip over in this as well. I'd have to weigh it, but this is in the color Wood Smoke and this is in the color Fossil. And I prefer these colors a lot more. The other thing that I could do is keep these in my stash, and when I go to buy Brooklyn Tweed, if I buy Brooklyn Tweed in the future, I have these skeins on hand. I could get a sweater's quantity in this and then buy one less. So I'll see what comes out. These are things that I don't necessarily have a plan for. Again, I thrifted them or got them secondhand, so I think that they will just be going into my stash for now, but I'm very happy to have these and to be able to try out Brooklyn Tweed. So I ended up with, I have 5 of these, 1 each of these, so 7 skeins, and I got it for $60, which is a fantastic deal because I think in Canada at least each of these go for 20 bucks a skein. So I'm looking at about half off, which is, I think, a very good deal. And no taxes, which is, you know, always win. I love Facebook Marketplace for that. I have a lot of what I own is from Facebook Marketplace. I just think I'd rather get it secondhand if I can, and why not get a deal? So that's all I've gotten. I didn't have intentions of really buying anything at all, but the things that I have managed to find, I'm very pleased with. I think that going forward, I don't really have intentions to buy much yarn until I go to Europe, because I know that I'll probably buy a decent-ish amount while I'm in England. I will be weighing on a pretty small suitcase, so I think it might be a little bit difficult for me just because I'll be moving around a lot and I don't want to be like lugging yarn. So I'm curious if mailing some back would be economical. Probably not with all the post strikes and whatnot, but we shall see. But anyways, that is far, far in the future. In the next 2 weeks coming up, I've got a pretty crazy 2 weeks. I've got a lot going on at work. A lot of work I need to pull together a proposal for my thesis to send to my committee, which is exciting. I'm kind of in the stage where I feel like a real PhD. I'm doing real research. I'm preparing for a research trip. I've got 3 conferences coming up in the next little bit, so I'm preparing for all of those. And then I will be going to my parents' house to stay with my sister for a week, and then I'm back here for 3 days, and then me and my husband are going to Cuba. So February is just gonna fly by, I think. It's all very exciting, but it is also like I need to use these 2 weeks to prepare for that time, to prepare to have some time off. I am so excited to be able to see the sun again. I can, like, the warmth I can take or leave, if I'm being honest. I really like cold weather. I just miss the sunshine. And so I'm so excited to see the sun. I've been to Cuba once, but I went to a terrible all-inclusive. It was like a 3-star. There were actual cockroaches in our room. It was horrendous. And there was a rainstorm while we were there. We had 1 sunny day. So I'm just praying that this one's better. We're going to a very nice resort. Thank God. But let me know if you think, we're in Veradero, if you think anything is worth it. I remember going to Veradero proper, and I didn't think going into town was very worth it, but I've heard other people say that Veradero proper has gotten nicer. It's been almost 10 years since I went last. So let me know if you have been to Cuba recently, if you have any recommendations. Is Havana worth it? I've heard mixed things about that too. I've never been to Havana. Is it worth to go for the day? Is there anything around Veradero that is worth seeing? One thing that I really want to do, and I've always wanted to do, is apparently our resort has Vespa scooters that you can rent. I have always wanted to live my Lizzie McGuire dream and get on a Vespa and just drive around town. But unlike the Lizzie McGuire movie, I want to drive my own Vespa. I do not want to sit in the back. I've always wanted to drive a scooter. I've never done it. And I think Cuba is a good place for it because the roads aren't as busy as, say, like Italy. I would be terrified. So I really hope we get to do that. They're apparently pretty affordable too. And I've never driven a scooter. I'm so excited. That's probably what I'm most excited for on this trip. Of anything, I'm like, I get to drive a scooter. So yeah, other than that, let me know if you have any recommendations. I am all ears. This is a little bit of a last minute thing for us. We're just trying to chase the sunshine, I guess, and it was the most kind of economical trip we could choose. And then my husband will likely not be joining me in Europe, so we'll be saving some money there as well. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking forward to in the next 2 weeks. Please let me know what you're knitting on. I am very interested to see. And yeah, thank you again so much for watching. I really value each and every one of you. I love chatting to you in the comments and on Instagram, and I don't know, in the past 2 weeks I've just been chatting to people about how in love with this little community I am. Not only the people that watch me, but like the knitting community in general. I think it's just so fun. And it's funny talking to people because like they have no idea that this whole community even exists. And then you say, oh yeah, there's like thousands of people. The biggest knitting YouTubers have like 100,000 subscribers. And they're like, I didn't even know this happened. And it's so fun to just be part of this like niche little community of people that like are just sitting around knitting. So that's delightful. But yeah, I hope you have a wonderful week ahead of you, and I will see you next time. Bye.